Swollen feet and country club humiliation, the comedy of bodily betrayal. There is a particular kind of betrayal that only the body can deliver, and it arrives for Lucy Carmichael the moment she tries to remove the roller skates. The feet have already begun their quiet rebellion. What began as vanity in the sporting goods store has become physiology. The size 5.5 forced onto feet that required an 8 has done its work. The script gives us the aftermath with unsentimental clarity. Lucy cannot get the skates off. Her feet are swollen. Everything hurts. She has crashed into the popcorn machine. She has seen only the ceiling of the new skating rink. And still, when the reality of the country club dance asserts itself, she makes the only decision that feels consistent with the woman we have come to know. She will keep the skates on. She will go anyway. I have never watched this sequence without feeling a complicated surge of recognition. The body at a certain point stops negotiating. It no longer cares about the story you were trying to tell with it. It no longer cares that you wanted to look delicate or desirable or capable of gliding through a room as if the years had not yet collected their due. It simply swells. It bruises. It refuses the next step you had planned. Lucy's swollen feet are the perfect comic object because they are also a perfect emotional truth. We make bargains with our bodies. We ask them to carry us through performances of grace, or youth, or competence. And then at the least convenient moment they present the bill. The scene at home is played with Lucille Ball's characteristic blend of physical precision and emotional transparency. She sits there, skates still attached, cataloging the damage, the arm, the leg, the ankle, the general sense that nothing has come back to her except the falling. Vivian's concern is practical and affectionate. She wants to get the skates off. She anticipates the further swelling that will follow. And Lucy, in a moment of pure desperate logic, refuses. If she keeps the skates on, the swelling will be contained. If she takes them off, she will not be able to get her feet into any shoes at all. The dance will be lost. Walter Kendricks will be lost. The fragile possibility that the evening might still redeem the afternoon's humiliation will be lost. So the skates stay on. The dress hem is lowered. The body will be smuggled into the country club under the cover of fabric and hope. I think often about the courage it takes to enter a room when you know your body is already working against you. Most of us faced with similar evidence of physical mutiny would cancel. We would invent a headache, a sudden obligation, a quiet evening at home. Lucy does not cancel. She adjusts the costume and proceeds. The decision is ridiculous. It is also strangely dignified. She has already paid for the skates in pain. She will extract whatever remaining value they might hold. If that value is the chance to stand in the same room as the man who flirted with her while her feet were being crushed, then so be it. The entrance itself is one of the great physical sequences in the series. The doorman announces her. She appears. And immediately the floor becomes an adversary. The skates hidden beneath the long dress turn every step into a negotiation with gravity. She grabs the pole. She declines to dance. She invents reasons to remain stationary while Vivian and Walter move easily across the floor. The comedy is constructed with mathematical care, the contrast between Lucy's rigid, precarious stillness and the ordinary social motion happening around her. Yet what gives the sequence its lasting power is the emotional undercurrent. She is not merely a woman on roller skates at a formal dance. She is a woman whose body has refused the performance she asked of it and who has decided to continue the performance anyway. Mr. Mooney's presence sharpens the humiliation. He notices the entrance. He comments on the new shoes. He asks how much they cost. The exchange is classic Lucy Mooney, her bright deflection, his permanent suspicion that she has once again spent money she does not have. But underneath the familiar rhythm sits a quieter truth. Mooney represents the world that expects women to remain upright, solvent and appropriately shod. Lucy has failed on all three counts in a single evening. And still, she stands there holding the pole, smiling through the knowledge that one wrong shift of weight will send her skating into the buffet or the fish pond that seems to have appeared without warning. I have known versions of this evening. Not the skates, not the country club, but the deeper structure. The event you were determined to attend because canceling would mean admitting that the body or the situation, or the carefully constructed hope had already won. The smile that feels like it is holding back more than it is expressing. The careful calculation of every movement. The way ordinary social space becomes obstacle course when you are no longer confident in your own physical reliability. Lucy lives that calculation in real time, and Lucille Ball makes every adjustment visible without ever begging for pity. The performance is too busy being precise, too committed to the next precarious second to ask for our sympathy. We give it anyway. The jealousy that flickers through the scene when Vivian dances with Walter is another layer of the same bodily story. Lucy cannot move freely. Vivian can. The man they both found interesting is now paired with the body that still obeys ordinary rules of balance and motion. Lucy's stillness becomes a form of exile. She is present in the room and excluded from its central activity by the very object she refused to remove. The skates that were meant to preserve the possibility of the evening have become the reason she cannot fully participate in it. That irony is almost too perfect. It is also deeply familiar. So often the things we cling to in order to remain eligible for desire become the very things that isolate us from it. There is a moment when Lucy, attempting to navigate, ends up asking a waiter for help and then deciding mid-rescue that she will dance after all. The physical business that follows is pure ball, the sudden commitment, the immediate regret, the sense that the floor itself has become unreliable. When she asks with genuine bewilderment when they put in the fish pond, the line captures something essential about the experience of bodily betrayal. The world has not actually changed. Only her relationship to it has. Surfaces that were once neutral have become threats, distances that were once simple have become fraught. The fish pond is the perfect comic externalization of an internal reality. Everything is suddenly more dangerous than it was supposed to be. I watch this sequence now with a different kind of attention than I did years ago. Then I laughed at the logistics, the hidden skates, the lowered hem, the pull, the near collisions. Now I feel the accumulated weight of every time a body has failed to deliver the evening that was promised. The swollen ankle that cancelled the walk, the back that refused the dance, the fatigue that turned a social obligation into an endurance test. Lucy's skates are simply a more visible, more concentrated version of a common human negotiation. We ask our bodies to carry our hopes. Sometimes they decline. The question then becomes whether we cancel the hope or attempt to smuggle it into the room under altered conditions. Lucy chooses the latter. The choice is chaotic and costly and ultimately hilarious. It is also, in its stubborn way, a form of fidelity to her own wanting. The country club setting amplifies everything. This is not a private humiliation. It is a public one, staged under chandeliers and the eyes of Mr. Mooney and the eligible bachelors and the other couples who move through the space without having to calculate the physics of every step. Lucy's determination to remain becomes a quiet act of defiance against the expectation that women should remove themselves when they can no longer perform grace effortlessly. She will not remove herself. She will hold the pole. She will accept the punch. She will endure the sight of Vivian dancing with Walter. She will stay until the evening has exhausted whatever small possibility it still held. There is something almost noble in the refusal to retreat. Nobility is not a word often applied to Lucy Carmichael's schemes, and yet it fits here. She has already been foolish. She has already paid in pain. To go home would be to accept that the foolishness was pure loss. By attending, she converts the loss into something else, a story, a spectacle, a continued participation in the social world that still matters to her. The body has betrayed the original plan. She responds by revising the plan around the betrayal. The skates will not come off. Very well. The dress will get longer. The movement will get more careful. The evening will proceed under new physical laws. Lucille Ball's genius in these moments is her refusal to separate the comic from the courageous. She does not ask us to admire Lucy's grit. She simply shows us a woman continuing. The continuation is full of near disasters and brittle smiles and carefully chosen stillness. It is also full of a stubborn insistence on remaining visible even when visibility has become precarious. In a culture that so often encourages women to become smaller when their bodies stop cooperating with youthful ideals, that insistence feels quietly radical. Lucy does not become smaller, she becomes more complicated. She occupies the room on terms the room did not anticipate. When I return to this episode, it is often this section I linger in longest. The store scene is about the desire to be seen as desirable. The aftermath is about what happens when the body refuses to sustain the performance of desirability. Between those two movements sits the entire human comedy of aging, of vanity, of hope that outlasts evidence. Lucy's swollen feet are funny because the situation is extreme. They are moving because the underlying negotiation is ordinary. We have all stood in some version of that country club, holding on to whatever stationary object will keep us upright, smiling through the knowledge that the evening we planned is no longer the evening we are having. And still she stays. That finally is what I carry away from the sequence. Not just the perfect timing of the slips and the grabs and the invented fishpond, but the deeper choice to remain present inside a body that has temporarily become an adversary. The comedy of bodily betrayal is never only about the betrayal. It is about the response. Lucy's response is messy and proud and unwilling to concede the night. In that unwillingness I find something that feels against all odds like grace.